Thanks for obviously jumping on this call. You've now been training with us for a number of weeks, and I guess the point of these calls is just to get an understanding as how you as an individual have come on board, and obviously where you are currently at, where you were at when you were started, and the good, the bad, and the ugly that's come with it. We always like to understand it all. We pride ourselves on coaching rather than just giving programs. So you can obviously attest to that. But I guess what I'd like to get an understanding of is what's the biggest shift in how your body feels or performs since starting the program?
Yeah, which has actually been quite considerable. The biggest shift is probably adaptability in terms of like physical adaptability, but also mental. Um, Probably the best example I can actually give is literally something that happened to me 48 hours ago. And if this had happened to me before this program, we wouldn't be having this conversation at the moment. I'd probably still be bedridden and dealing in major pain. I just doing something in the garage. I was literally just going in to grab a couple of spanners to change out a battery in a car, and for some unknown reason, just a freak scenario, I had a very extraordinarily heavy tool chest decide to fall on me. It's about 700 kilos worth and pinned me in about a 45-degree position. I was able to call out to my wife to come and give me a hand to get out of that. If I'd have moved any which way beyond where I hold it, I easily would have been crushed by it. But actually, funnily enough, I was able to hold the position, able to balance it. And my wife was able to come in and give me the additional balance I needed, got it off me. Yep, it broad hit me, felt my hips take a massive brunt of it. Lower back was very unhappy. Top of my thigh took a major hit. Um, if that had happened 12 weeks ago, no two ways about it, I'd still be on bed rest. The reality of that situation was uh, for the next 4 hours, I was a little bit of impingement in terms of movability. Took a couple of Panadol and then later a couple of Nurofen. Yesterday, I just took a couple of Nurofen when I was a little bit impinged, but it only stopped me from working for about 4 hours. Then I was back at my desk. Today, I'm fine.
Wow, that's awesome in a way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was for me because if I take the comparison 12 weeks ago, prior to doing all of this with your team, I can remember it was a simple thing. It was just I was literally mowing the lawn, bent over to pick something up to throw it out of the way, felt my lower back and decided that it was very unhappy with that. And then I was, for the next 3 days, like I could walk around all right, but I could feel it the entire time and forever reaching for my back. Aside from sitting down, there was nothing much else I was capable of. Here I am, really a handful of weeks later in reality, and being able to take a beating and recover quite quickly.
Wow, that's awesome. What I usually say to like with everything is life is always going to throw us curveballs, right? Like, and this idea of bulletproof for me is a bit of a kind of a marketing statement, right? And it frustrates me a little bit because what happens now as we age is the injuries are coming in the most weirdest of fashions, right? Like you step down off a curb, you twist it to get out of the car. Like I'm somebody who actively trains mobility. I'm somebody who has put a lot of investment into this in terms of my own body. And my injuries come from, trying to take a 2-year old out of the car who doesn't want to get out of the car, or, I was helping my daughter ride a bike not so long ago and she kind of like, jerked away from me. And as I went to grab her, I pulled my hip out. And it's like, it's, that's not the issue. The issue is if I have nothing to do after that, if I don't know how to have a thing that can help to alleviate that, that's what we try to show people, right? Like we want to build, and prepare as best we can, but we have to appreciate that there's always going to be something. But if we can understand a protocol or we can understand a way of, as you say, like maybe I take a bit of a rest, maybe I take, not ideal to take painkillers, but there is obviously every scenario. If you've really, really hurt yourself and a 700-kilo toolbox has fallen you, there's a time and a place, but knowing then that, within 48 hours, you're kind of back to somewhat normality, like that's awesome. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest feedbacks that I always hear from you is more around the volume of your walking now, right? Like you like to do your morning walks and seeing like how that's transformed to not being a chore to actually being something that you enjoy doing, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's a really big takeaway from me. And to be honest with you, it wasn't actually something I was expecting coming into this to be totally frank with you. At the beginning, when I first spoke with you, as you know, I sort of specifically sought out and took a lot of time looking between different people that sort of speak to what they can or can't help you with. And unfortunately, the reality was that a good deal of it was just, of the others that I found was just good marketing. And at least in my opinion, wasn't sort of backed by a good range of skill or even, necessarily following their own, what they're teaching. I've been through physiotherapists, I've been through chiropractors, I've been through various medical doctors and whatnot, and this is all over a 20-year period. Just in terms of, I've got a slight, what you might call a posterior tilt or something like that, which obviously has an impingement on the lower back. But I've known for a long time that the hip flexors were basically causing the best degree of that. And so I think I told you, like one of my first walks, I made it about 300 meters and then I was just in pain. Now, as you rightly point out, I'm now up to, I cleared just on about 6.5 to nearly 7 kilometers in about an hour. And I have a little bit of ache at the back end of that. But when I say a little bit of ache, yes, it's there. Yes, I recognize it. It lasts about 20 minutes and then I'm good to go. I could almost basically have a glass of water and go out and repeat it.
Yeah, nice.
And I think one of my takeaways from being able to do that, which is something that I can't express to you just how good this really is for me, is the heart health aspect of that. It takes longer and longer and longer now to get into, what you might term as zone 2 training for your heart, which is telling me that my heart condition is improving, and that's going to stand me in stead for years and years to come. And that makes a big difference to the ability to train and your recovery speed and all the rest of it. It's huge.
Yeah, I feel like, I'm now in 4 weeks' time, I'm gonna be hitting 40, and a lot of the people that we work with are on the other side of 40, and it's a lot of similar scenarios where, number one is our time that we have to give is less, so we wanna make that a bit more specific to what we wanna do, but also our drive changes, like yours is now enjoying your walks in the morning, and when we create space for that, like, and we actually have protocols in place to get the body moving more efficiently, like your recovery is better, right? Like, and in your scenario, with a slight excessive anterior tilt, yeah, for anybody who's listening, like your L5, I think it's actually your L2 is connected to your hip flexor, or your hip flexor is connected to that. So if your hip flexor is pulling and it's tight, it will tend to pull you into more of an anteriorly tilted position. And it's surprising because a lot of people will have a back problem and think it's the back pain, and will look at the back, but then not actually look at potentially what's happening on the other side of the joint. And one thing that I always give as an advice for anybody is, if you feel an area of weakness or tightness in the body, like, see what's happening on the other side. Like, what is your ability to be strong on the other side? Because a lot of the times our inability to carry out a movement is generally down to apprehension. And the stronger you feel carrying out a movement, obviously the better you are going to be at carrying out that movement. And you might be feeling a 20-minute back pain, but it's probably because you're now pushing yourself, right? You're now getting to 6, 7K. So now the next time it's always going to be, well, could I do 7.5K? Like, so it's, you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't push yourself, then you never really know what your true capacity is, right? And
Yeah, that's actually a distinct thing that's come with me. So part of that problem for the longest period of time has been, particularly, I'm approaching mid 40s now. And just to be clear for anyone that's going to watch this, is this hasn't been sort of a short-term problem. This has been a problem that I've put up with for probably the best part of about 20 years. And although I pushed through it in younger years, when you're in your 20s or even potentially your early 30s, mentally you can probably say, oh, that's right, I'll push through the pain. But as you start to get to your mid and late 30s and on, you start to ask yourself if you're about to do real damage, and is that damage going to be long term? And then you create what I've had, which has been a bit of a mental block of, I don't think I can afford to do that. I need to sit down and rest and do what the doctor said, and do nothing and wait until it's gone and then try again. I think in reality, that's probably the worst piece of advice that I've received historically, and it added to a mental block that really and truly actually came into the greatest of clarity for me here 2 or 3 weeks ago now. And it was raining outside, so I couldn't actually do my walk outside. And I'd gone to the gym and used the walker there, and I'd pumped it right up to high speed and great incline and all the rest of it. And I'd done this 1 hour and got off, and obviously I was dripping wet and sweating it all out and needing a towel. And as I was standing there and I'd sort of dried off, that had only been maybe 15 minutes and maybe not even that. And I sort of went to go and change my shirt because then I was headed into the program and realized I could actually hop on and do that again if I wanted. I'd already recovered. And that for me was one of the biggest changes, that I can push this, I can continue to build it. That pain is, whilst it exists, it's firmly in my head and my body can recover with the help of what you guys have actually been showing me. That's, sort of, and this is probably the biggest thing about handstand, is it's unique to my body. It's unique to my particular restrictions and problems that you've been able to cater that to and tailor it to. But as a result, I've finally, all these years later, having spoken to many different people, having tried many different things, and that's not even a joke, it'd be thousands and thousands of hours of research and attempts and failures. But here now, lo and behold, sort of 6, 7 weeks into it, now, only now, have I managed to actually get past that.
Yeah, that's so good. Like, a lot of this is education, right? And it's not to question someone's intelligence. It's just to be like, okay, well, if I haven't been doing certain things, and I like to keep things simple in the sense of, if we can make it really simple for you to decipher and understand, then you're more likely to do it. And if you can understand the why and how it relates to you, then there's a better buy-in, right? And the buy-in is that you're actually going to go and do it, because do it yourself programs have a 3% completion rate, meaning that someone buys a program, and if there's nothing else coming with that, like no one to keep you accountable, no one to help you change exercises, give you advice, the reality is most people never finish it. And I'm guilty of that. I've bought programs in the past and I've looked at them and I've done them to a certain extent, but when you actually get coaching, that's the difference, right? Like, because if you've got somebody that you were doing your program, and now maybe it's week 4 and all of a sudden something has changed in your personal life, or maybe you're more stressed and as a result something has given you a bit of a tweak, knowing that you can message someone, they can give you clarity around that or go through certain things, it just changes the game for you, right? And we're
Yeah.
goal orientated, right? So we want to help you as an individual, and that's why we look at you from the very start. And then we go, right, this is exactly what you need right now. Based on the conversations we've had and where we want it to lead to, then this is what we need to do. For someone like you and others that we've spoken to in similar situations, it's actually trying to understand that it's okay to you got to trust the process, right? Because as you say, you can be overwhelmed by loads of information online, and too much information is just as bad as no information. And my advice for everybody is we put the blinkers on and we just trust the process, and we do what's needed, and we understand the data that's behind it and why we're doing it. You just appreciate, right? Like, because I had another client on the other day, and they had said that it was doing everything that they wanted it to, and then they kind of pushed it a little bit too hard, and then as a result they got a little bit of a twinge. And that's usually what I recommend to people, is like, please, like, yes, you probably could do more, but we're trying to rebuild here. We're trying to set you up for longevity, set you up for the rest of your life. And so it's kind of like, yeah, trust the process, right?
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah.
I guess what I'd like to understand is, which part of the process kind of most surprised you here?
Actually, I was probably a little bit surprised. There's probably been a couple of surprises. All of them quite good, just unique in their different ways. Particularly because, as I mentioned, I've done many different things and tried many different avenues, and seen various different specialists in their own right. Even from the very first interview, which was essentially almost like a 360-degree rotation of yourself on film with the team, and do this, and try these following things, show us what you can and can't do, so that it was one thing for me to tell you what my range of problems was, but as the professionals, you were able to sort of take me through a process so that you could identify other things that you could see, which I had either not given any weight to or hadn't considered. And obviously, you built it into the program that's tailored to sort of meet my needs. I think probably the most surprising thing was, and this was genuinely for me was a major surprise. I consider myself quite flexible as far as the average 40-year-old white collar keyboard warrior goes. And trying to find something that could actually improve my hip flexors has been quite literally, until now, impossible. I've tried it all. And even if you filmed me doing it, I would look fantastic and as though maybe once upon a time I was some sort of a gymnast. I certainly am not. I was just lucky enough to be flexible. And you'd say to yourself, oh, okay, well, why have you got a problem with your hip flexors? And my answer to that is, don't know. Thanks for asking. I've got the same problem. I'd like an answer. And I've tried many of the things that are even incorporated into this tailored program, but, and this is the biggest one, was there is a handful of, in the videos that are on your application in terms of, okay, if you get into this position and you're not feeling a stretch, now do this. If that's still not enough, now do this. And you were able to take me through, for lack of a better way of putting it, integers of how to push deeper and deeper and deeper into a stretch, which I can tell you now, I've genuinely watched thousands of hours of material on how to improve this and how to get the most out of it. It's never gotten to this point. This is the first time, it's hands down the first time in at least 15 years that I have been able to find a position where I could, in fact, actually stretch that out, feel it. And then more importantly, the difference was notable at the 2 week mark, as in quite notable. And for me, that was a massive improvement. I suppose after that, the next sort of thing that was, I suppose, a bit of a surprise to me was I didn't expect to walk out of this with improved heart conditioning at all. I walked in here with the hip flexors and the lower back being my very primary goal. My left wrist was my next primary goal. It's been a long-term issue that I just haven't been able to jump past. And then some shoulder restrictions and issues. Not that they've been giving me pain, but certainly restricted. And obviously there was a couple of other things that your team's dealt with me as well. But they were probably, if you were to say, list your top three, they were it. Walked in with that expectation. Didn't expect to get the nutrition advice that your team gives, and was highly excited about that. Didn't expect to have, where I was struggling on a particular exercise or saying, hey, I'm not sure I'm doing this right, or this feels really odd, to then have you guys get on and literally do a video with me and say, righto, do this. Okay, yep, we can see that problem. Try this, shift a little bit that way, add this, underneath you for support. All these tiny little variables, this stuff that's just not addressed on anything else you go through, that made a massive, massive difference. And then in my case, the heart health result is critical, really, to somebody in their 40s and older. But this is the difference between how many years you get.
Yeah, it's something that we're really working on to show people that it's not just a couple of stretches. Like, we actually are a full training business. Obviously, with the start of everything, you want to kind of pick a niche that you're passionate about. But I've been doing this for 24 years, and I have gone through every modality. I played a high level of football in Ireland, and so for me, it's always about performance, and that's kind of what we look to. Is everybody has to perform, and everybody's an athlete, right? Performance is, you've had a shit night's sleep and you've got kids, you still got to get up the next morning and you still got to show up for them. And that's the biggest drive for most of our clients at the moment. If it's male, it's generally around making sure they can keep up with their kids. A lot of the females that we work with is preparing them for menopause and everything that throws their way. And it's really about setting you up for life, right? I'm not here to just give you a quick fix. I'm here to at least start your journey, and then whether you want to continue with us after that point or you take it on board and utilize the knowledge that you've gained. That's why we're goal orientated. The beauty of what we do is we can take people from not being able to get up and down off the floor to learning how to handstand to lifting their body weight in a deadlift or a squat, as an example. So it's like, the beauty of that then is we understand where you are right now, and then we have a conversation about where you want to take it. And you mightn't believe where you could actually take it, but that's where having a coach comes in, right? And the reason why we give such high touch service is because that's what people need. Like, if I had just given you a program from the get go and you just go and do it, well, even like from what we've done for you, like, we've changed your program many times. We've added in more conditioning style as well to help you with body composition, to help you with your heart health. And that's the beauty of one-on-one coaching, right? Like, let me rephrase that. That's the beauty of one-on-one coaching that's done well, because there is a lot where it's to try and get a quick book and they have all these, like, basically kind of do it yourself style. Our approach is a lot different when it comes to our one-on-one coaching, because we believe that It should be personal. That's what it's supposed to be. We believe that we are designing it based off you right now. And then if you want your program to change, then you got to show up, right? Because that's why we do, fortnightly calls where we do check in with you, because we want to be able to say, okay, well, how has the last 2 weeks gone? Is it now time to change a couple of exercises? What ones are you improving on? What ones are you struggling on? And that's what coaching is, right? It's not a case of here's program, or like here's workouts and you just hope for the best. It's like, no, this is exactly what you need. And then the beauty of that then as well is people's like goals change as well. You could be 6 weeks into the program, and now because your back pain is going, you're like, oh, actually, now I have more of a belief to put it to the test. So something that I didn't think was back here, now I actually can. The horizon is opening to it, and it makes it very addictive, right? In
Well, yeah,
saying
I
that,
mean, you touched on one thing in particular there. I walked to it with sort of one picture in my mind, having no concept whatsoever that heart health would at all be a result of this program. None. My goal, I suppose, my first impression was somewhere between fix or otherwise reduce certain pains and restrictions, so that once this course was done, I'd go back to weightlifting and probably do better than what I had done. The reality is, halfway through the process, realizing actually, hang on a second, this is like I can actually walk and walk a distance, and that's resulted in the heart health problem. Like that's far more important to me than anything that I assumed I would get out of this.
yeah, nice. And as I said, we're getting better at our messaging for those sort of things, because I just love helping people. If I can't even quantify the amount of hours that we've put into even just building this platform. Most people don't put in the level of detail that we have. And again, that's not really my concern. My concern is that we continue to take feedback from people like you, continue to grow the platform the best way we can. I think we've got over 500 exercises in there now that we've personally recorded, edited, and got in there. So we always have a variation depending on where somebody's at. So it's not a case of you need to get fit to start coaching. It's quite the opposite. And I always relate it to like, you know, you don't learn, or you don't like drive a car to a certain point and then go for lessons, right? Like you get lessons to learn how to be a bit more efficient in how you drive a car, right? And so
Yeah,
that's kind of what I think about. Like, you want to drive your body and you want to control it. Like, why not spend a bit of time with somebody who can look at you from an external perspective, give you kind of, a smack of reality, in the sense of this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. This stuff that you can't do that you want to do, this is how we're going to go about regaining that, or achieving that, right? What I'd like to know is, if you could go back 12 weeks, tell yourself one thing before starting, what would it be?
realize that the picture in my head of what's wrong with me is subject to professional oversight. I walked in with a ready articulated intention, um, and felt that, great, this is how we're going to go. Yep, sort of yourself and your team highlighted the other areas that you could help me. Great, and then to be honest, being ready to pivot with the benefits that are available to you, and then allowing obviously the pros at your end that can actually do this 360-degree review of you. And then at the 2 week mark, my ability to say, hey, I'm not sure if I'm necessarily improving here. I'm not sure if this feels right. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. And the ability to turn on the camera. Let's have a look. Okay, we can see what you're talking about. Try this, make that adaptation, etc. So it was more, what would I tell myself is the picture in your head is based on your viewpoint. Allow the pros to do what they do best and help you identify other things that you haven't identified that are causing or part of that problem, to work with it so that you're better prepared, not only for this 12 weeks, but as you mentioned earlier in this, for the rest of your life. It's definitely been, it was a little bit of I suppose, not an irritation, but it was a bit of a learning cycle for me for about a 2 week component of it, thinking, oh, I'm not necessarily progressing on this particular component, but it was because I'd allowed that to overshadow other things that were actually improving behind the scenes. And as soon as I saw it, it was like, okay, yep, I can see it all happening, follow the process. And I would say, as a point of experience in difference, the previous professionals that I've engaged one way or another, whether they're medical professionals or other, their response to your to your statements about whether or not there's a restriction or a problem or whatnot, tends to be more along the lines of push harder. Whereas the experience here with both yourself and your team has been more they're inquisitive and they've got more of an interest. So instead of this backhanded, oh, you just need to try harder. Okay, let's handle that. Let's see. Let's talk about what the problem is and being able to talk you through it so that you can actually understand what the restriction or method or need or development or tailoring is, and then be able to adapt to it. And as a result of that, my improvement has, people use the term night and day, but I'm not even sure that that's an effective enough comparison.
Yeah, it's one thing that I used to always get frustrated about with my own journey was being told to you just need to do it more. For me, I always talk about like the abyss in the sense of if I don't know something, then it's like, if I pee into the abyss, I'll never see where it lands, right? So it's like what we do a little bit different is because I've obviously done a lot of this even in a group environment where I've been able to see, let's say our hips as an example. If I've got 25 people in front of me or even 100 people in front of me, I know they've all got different hip structures. But if I've got a way of being able to globally voice that so that even individuals can see how they would choose like what you said earlier about, if you're not feeling it here, then try this variation or push it into this point or do this. And I appreciate that some medical professionals, from a liability perspective, will always err on the side of caution. But I err on the side of education. So it's like, if I can educate you enough, then in theory, you should know how to make a better decision. And if we show you the why behind it, then that makes sense as well. So earlier on, you were referring to the one-on-one assessments that we do from the very, very start so that we can understand you and we can look at things because, some people can be hard on themselves as well. And then actually with a bit of fine tuning and a bit of coaching, all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually I've unlocked that. Always thought I struggled, but no one ever told me to do it that way. And so like for me, it's if I can, again, hit you with reality and say, this is where you're at, please trust the process, give us time because we know how to unlock you. Like the journey is different, but the destination is the same for most people, and it's all about the journey, right? Like if I can understand what, if we think of a train and like we want to get to one destination, maybe you're on a different track to start. Maybe you have to go through a few more stops before, you're not on the express, you're not going straight to the destination. We got to do a few stop offs on the way. And I think when we understand that, that can help to resonate with, okay. The other thing I say is like we've got to appreciate what you're bringing to the table. Like, if I get somebody else who's the same height and weight as you, maybe they also work in an office style, maybe the same age, and they had a different upbringing to you. So maybe, they didn't play sport and they didn't get endless amount of injuries. It's already going to be different when we come to look at you and try and create a program, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
that's why I stress that we like, one-on-one coaching is the most valuable asset because I appreciate that people don't necessarily want to fully invest in themselves. Totally fine. But what I will say is you've got two choices in life, right? You can save time by spending money, or if you want to save money, then you got to spend a bit more time. And so by all means, you can YouTube, you can look at all these different things, but it's probably going to take you a long time. You're going to make mistakes along the way, which is totally fine. And if that is you as an individual, awesome. My approach to most people is like, well, what if you invested on a short period of time and actually gained a high level of education on that topic? That's going to help you then for when you are researching after that point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The thing I wanted to say was, obviously you came on board and you did have these little factors that you were putting in as the main priorities, your back, your hip flexors, your wrists. But I guess what I'd like to understand is based on what you've been doing with us, how has that impacted your day to day life, outside of training? I'm talking work, family, sleep, even your mindset in terms of everything that you're doing.
Yeah, so I might potentially be one of the more extreme cases of your clients in terms of workload. It's probably more similar to what you experience in terms of, I'm in the midst of starting a new business. And when I make that statement, I'm literally building a company with a whole host of people expecting to come across. There's multiple families that are very dependent on that. So I spend between 40 to 50 hours a week on that particular project. There's no currently, put it this way, I wouldn't see a dollar out of that project for at least the next 12 months. In fact, the cost to me has been quite extraordinary. And then outside of that, I still have to pay the bills. So I've still got other work commitments that I do that brings that in. My total working hours per week is close to about 80 hours on average, sometimes more, sometimes a bit less, but thereabouts. I was lucky enough that in the first 6 weeks of this program, I didn't have that level of commitment, and that was why it was sort of the ample opportunity to get into this as quick as I could. I was only sort of around the 50 to 60 hour a week mark, so I had more time to commit to the program. So in terms of how has this helped? Well, I'm now back into the full sledge of this. There have been probably 1.5 weeks during this period where I just haven't been able to fully commit to what my schedule is. But the key thing about that is what I have been able to do, at least on a daily basis, is roughly about 15 minutes of my so taking out the weight component that you've allocated to me. I can do all of the non-weight related stuff just, here in the office during a lunch break for about 15 minutes. And the beauty of that has been is that, there was a 9-day period there where I just wasn't going to be able to get to the gym. I was still able to commit to doing all of that. When I did get back to the gym, I hadn't gone backwards. I was able to pick up exactly where I left off from. I hadn't lost any strength. I hadn't lost any range of movement. I didn't have any additional pains or impingements or restrictions. That 15-minute a day that I was able to par out, okay, it wasn't the target, it wasn't the plan, but it kept me on target and I feel fine. In terms of how that impacts my work, well, it's big because at these sorts of hours, your irritation level can climb very quickly. Whether or not you've eaten on time or had enough water in the day, the water one happens to be a big one. Um, your ability to sit down in front of a list of monitors and maintain high level focus is problematic. If you're not resilient enough, this is going to break you. So, in terms of that, without going into its detail, because that's not what anyone listening to this is going to be interested in, but basically, I've had everything that I had forecasted was going to be a problem, and I was mentally ready and set for that. I always adjust for the unexpected to a degree. In this particular instance, the unexpected things that have been thrown at me have been substantially more, substantially harder. And I can promise anyone listening to this that that might have been enough for me to say, maybe this isn't doable. It hasn't been a problem as a result, particularly since about week 2 of being on this program. My ability to deal with change and not let it mentally affect me has been a considerable effect. The next integer for me was, as I mentioned earlier, that 6-week mark, particularly on that walker when I sort of hopped off, had that 15-minute breather and then realized, actually, I could have a glass of water and hop back on this and repeat it. And that was a massive, massive milestone for me because now, particularly with what I'm doing, sitting behind, this iPad looking at me right now is 6 monitors, um, and all of them in full use. I can tell you now that basically I can say to myself, "Oh, okay, great. It's lunchtime, and I've done a pre-prepared meal from stuff that your nutritionist has helped me put together." That's literally walk over to the microwave, throw it in for 4 minutes, sit down. I turn on the TV just for something. I'll sit down to that for 15 to 20 minutes. If I know that for some reason I'm not going to make it to the gym tonight, I'll then just do 15 minutes of all the non-weighted stuff. I come back to my desk, I'm not sweaty or all the rest of it, and I'm ready to rock and roll. My mind's clear. I'm not feeling agitated or upset, and this is despite whatever the problems are that it's thrown at me. And coming to your question about sleep, I think that's actually, there's 2 elements about what you guys have done for me that have improved my sleep substantially. One, obviously, probably 3 things, sorry. The first one would be the improvement on the flexibility and the mobility. I'm not waking up in aches and pains anymore. And I used to have that down my neck, through my shoulders, and in my back. So that's absolutely brilliant. And similarly, not that we discussed it on this, but as you're well aware, I had an ankle or an Achilles tendon issue. And that one, I'd wake up in the morning and you take the first handful of steps and wonder whether or not a dam was about to break by the sound of it. That's no longer there. With at least having the frequency, whether or not I can commit to a full night's regime or if I've just done my 15-minute regime, when I go to bed, I'm getting to sleep a lot quicker now. And then the third thing was because of the nutritionist that you've got on board, and she's brilliant. That impact there, my eating habit is right. I've got the right What's the word I'm looking for here? She put me onto a very specific magnesium that I take at night, and as a result, I can actually feel my body relax. I take that about half an hour before going to bed. It's thankfully it's quite pleasant to drink. It's got a nice taste to it, and I can feel my body relax into it. So I sleep much better, and I sleep deeper. So even if for whatever the reason be, I'm working through until sort of midnight or 1 a.m., which is not ideal, and certainly one of the big things that you guys continuously remind me of is make sure you're getting better quality sleep and more of it where possible. But when it's not possible, I'm still getting good quality sleep. And as a result, can still get up the next day refreshed enough to hop into it and still put in, the next massive day. Family, yeah, actually, it was my girls that, because they're sort of 10 and 12, they're about to turn 11 and 13. During these cycles that I go through with these really big hours, I can become very, not isolated, but, I'm running tired. And so I'm less of the playful dad, which is not what I want, and more of the hey, I'll catch you on the weekend sort of thing, which is not that's just not good. Now I've got that energy and the wherewithal that they come home through that door at sort of 3:30 and 4 o'clock respectively, and no problems. Take 30 minutes away from the desk. My team already knows that I'm unavailable for 30 minutes. Ask them about their day, have a muck around with them, and see what they're up to. No dramas on a Thursday to take them off to their sports, or actually Tuesdays and Thursdays. Um, I'm more vibrant again. I'm back to more what I was in my sort of 30s when they were first born, and I had a bit more time and I was being more playful with them. There's no aspect of this that's been negative. Every aspect of being part of this schedule has had a positive impact, a notable impact. And thankfully for me, even when I can't fully commit, there is sufficient, 15 minutes is all it takes to maintain. And for anybody that's had a range of movement problem or impingement problem or a pain problem, if you know that you can get away with just doing 15 minutes in terms of maintenance, because for whatever your restriction be, you can't do it, and still be able to fully turn around and not experience that ache, that pain, that restriction, whatever it comes with, is more than most people that don't have those sorts of issues can speak to. It's, you take it for granted.
Hmm. What would you say to another bloke in your shoes, thinking about starting this journey, maybe sitting on the fence and just kind of a little bit unsure?
Well, if any of them watch Marvel movies, Iron Man had a pretty good comment that no amount of money bought a minute of time. And if you want your time back, and if you're starting to watch the back end of this clock go, I would say stop trying to be. If you're a professional in anything other than physical development, then get the professionals that are into this to help you advance that and get there faster, and stop wasting the amounts of time that wasted trying to do your job for me. I would have done this much earlier had I had the sensibility.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Like you're a business owner, I'm a business owner, and I appreciate, I work most evenings after my kids go to sleep. It's not ideal, but I'm a hands-on father, so I don't like I collect my kids from school, I drop my kids to school and all the things. I bring them swimming. And the reason why I do that is mainly from the perspective of the more present I am as a father, the more they're going to make better choices when they grow older in terms of men, because they will always expect if daddy's on a pedestal because he's always done these things, then everybody else should be, you know, even close to that, right? And there's a lot of studies behind it as well, and the fact that you're at home with your kids there as well, like it'll just set them up for life, and that's my biggest drive. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we can always make excuses. As I said, like I run two businesses and I spend a lot of time building systems for these businesses, making sure they run smoothly or as smoothly as we can. Probably work a little bit more than I should, but for me, I like this isn't work, right? This is just me talking to somebody who I'm able to help. So to me, that's inspiring. But if you are a business owner and this isn't your specialty, or it potentially isn't something that you're fully interested in, like interested in, like what you said, going and researching and spending time watching videos, it's like getting a professional just cuts time. And what I find interesting is a lot of people will only invest when they're looking at a monetary return, right? As opposed to looking and saying like this could add 10 years to your life, right? Like and we say that because we know from looking at data, if people are not looking after themselves, well they are, they're cutting down the clock, and we can't change that unless we start to move. And in today's world, it's essential that you're doing some form of exercise. It's that might be a little bit abrupt to some people, but it's the truth. And for me, like I would love to help every single person that I can, but I can only help people who put their hand up. And for me, a testament to you giving us the space to being able to coach you. You've mentioned our team, like Alex is our dietitian, absolutely amazing. One of the highest, or she's one of our coaches that gets the most amount of praise because she's just so warming and really can home in on what you need to work at. We don't advocate for sitting there and monotonously counting your calories or shit like that, because we appreciate that. Like what you said, if you've got 20 minutes to go back there and cook your food and you got to get back, like, let's educate. Like, what are you eating? Can we make educated decisions here? Can we chop and change a few things? Likewise with Jonas and Isaac, our mobility specialists, they're also in there helping with the community. These guys are like dropping everything when a message comes in. And as you said, it's not just to write back to you. They'll send you an audio, they'll send you a video back explaining the discrepancy that you have or the query that you have. That's coaching. And I know there's easier ways of making more money, but for me, I want to help people. I genuinely want to help people. And like it shows, right? Like I put a post into our community last week. Could somebody, would anybody be interested in doing a testimonial so we can showcase what we do and help other people? This is like my third one already this week. We've got more coming. And it's like, it shows, it makes us feel really good because we do go above and beyond, right? And we do it because everybody who I've employed into my business is passionate about what they do. And when someone's passionate about what they do, then the true meaning of what they're doing comes out, right? And I think that's, you can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but you've
Uh,
probably
that
felt that, right?
like, no, it's bang on it. And people hear this next statement a bit when they talk about businesses, and unfortunately, a lot of online marketing has managed to utilize this to try and, I suppose, gain clients. But I can say with absolute conviction that one business might say that they do this because they care, and I can tell you that what they forgot to add to that line was that they care about the dollars. This team actually does give a hoot. I put out, not that I've put out sort of great gobs of, oh my god, I'm failing at this. Why am I so terrible? But when I have put something out and said, guys, I'm not confident about what I'm doing, or I'm not sure that I'm doing this right, or I'm unable to assess where I'm up to with this, and that one was a difficult one. There's a particular exercise for that Isaac's had to help me with. I'm going, no, 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 it's fine. That's exactly how it is. That's what feels like normal because it's obscure to you. But caring is a real thing, and actually taking an interest in what you're doing and how you're developing. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would suggest, at least in my experience with both yourself and Isaac in particular, that for you, you get a lot of a kick out of being able to get me past, and anybody else in this program, get me past whatever my inability might be on whatever the situation is, whether or not that's a particular exercise, or how you break the exercise down, or it feels whatever the issue might rise. But yeah, no, it's never been a problem for you guys to get on the call and take a look and help correct or tailor something even further, because there is just a specific unique thing about you that needs an adjustment. And that absolutely comes across. And then, anybody that's watching this, obviously they're not going to see this until they're part of the program, but you've got a couple of different chat lines. They're quite specific chat lines. One of them in particular is sort of a weekly wins that people contribute to. I've seen people from not only here where we are in Australia, but overseas, and obviously we've all got different time zones. But not only are they sort of posting their own stuff, we're also then sort of, giving the thumbs up or the congratulations or taking a bit of inspiration. Like one of the guys, and obviously I won't use their name, one of the gents posted, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he said, I can finally cross my legs. And of course, we knew what that meant. And a handful of us like, well done. And then he felt the need to come back and again, no, no, I don't think you understand the importance of this. I have not been able to do so much as this much for 30 odd years. And then, he did it quite humorously. It was great to be part of that particular that commentary string. But, each of us has, like, it's one thing for us to each have our different targets, but conquering a problem, however minor, to a particular person, those have an intense value to us. And you guys have all been part of fixing intense issues. There's not enough that we can say to say thank you for that. Any one of us on this program, and there's nobody that's taking part in this program that wouldn't agree with me on. And for me, so much so that, not that I've had this conversation with you, but I fully anticipate that once my business is up and rolling, because I know exactly who's joining my business and what they're doing, I have every expectation of having my business fund having each and every one of them come and do this with you.
Yeah, wow.
Because for me, knowing the impact of what you and your team have done for me, I know that that will place my team in much better health and capacity and resilience for the years that we have ahead. I've still got 20 odd years of this, and so do many of the other people joining me. They've got this is their retirement plan, but I've got a couple of younger people joining the team, and for them, they want to buy into that business and take this through to their retirement. Well, I've been here. I've been sitting in this seat for many, many years. Here I am. I've got a list of damages that you guys are fixing with. Better than damage and fixing it is prevention, and you guys can do that too. And I want to make sure that my team has all those benefits.
Yeah, nice. And like, that kind of is like the epitome of why I do what I do. It's literally to change people's lives, right? And it makes me emotional at times because I can't stress enough how particular I am at always trying to improve what we offer. And I'll always take feedback. I'll always take criticism. Obviously, if my fiance was here, she'd probably say that I do too much. But for
Well,
me,
you actively seek it out. It's nothing hidden about. You've reached out. I've probably seen at least once a fortnight as a minimum. You reaching out for a specific set of feedback on something.
yeah. Like with me, it's. Do you know what it is? I've come back from a lot of horrific injuries. For the first 25 years of my life, I was in hospital every year for something. I was that kid who broke bones. I was hit by a car. I've had a burst appendix for 3 months, tore my knee 3 times. There's lots of injuries, broke my arm. So it's like to be able to do the things that I can do right now. I remember going to a chiro about 2 years ago, and she said to me, for the assessment that I've done on your body shouldn't be able to do the things that it can do. And I guess the reason why I'm saying that is because I understand that there's a process to everything, and I have a meticulous mindset, and I can be quite tenacious in saying, right, well, if this is what I got to do, I'm going to do it. And like, I'll do everything. I remember I tore my knee when I was playing football in America, and the physio, I went for surgery, and then after the surgery, I think it was within about 2 weeks or something, I went to the physio and she was like, "Oh my God, the swelling's like gone down. I've never seen this before." She said, "What did you do?" I said, "I did exactly what you fucking asked me to do. I iced it 3 times a day. I elevated it. I got movement into it. I did every single thing that book told me to do." And she was like, "Oh, well, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that don't do that." And so the reason why I'm highlighting this is because I've fought through adversity and done all these things. And when I can help someone show them that the horizon can be opened again, that's what changes people's lives, right? In your scenario, obviously getting up and moving, we've had other clients who were working from home because they couldn't even go and take a train because they couldn't walk down steps. Then 12 weeks later, they're walking down steps and now they've joined a gym and they're training in the gym. Like, that's why I do this. Yes, it is a business. Yes, I do, have kids and they like to eat rare steak and I like to drink wine on a Friday and that costs money. So there is a charge to some of it, but it's like for what you get for, in terms of the reciprocation, the only time and I like to be transparent, the only time we have difficulties with people or like people who are not happy, it's generally down to them not committing. And I'll say that very transparently. Like, we've had people who've signed up and then after a few weeks will give us every excuse under the sun as to why the program's not working. But the reality is this is why we have app that can show us all the data. This is why we expect people to do certain things. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is because guess what? The people who do exactly what they've been asked to do get the results. It's that simple. Simple doesn't mean easy because we know, and you can attest to this, it is not easy, but it's worth it, right? If it was easy, everybody would fucking do it. But what I want to highlight is that when you come onto a program where people like I have like Isaac will write to me at midnight. You know, I have
The
people
same.
who write to me at all times. Exactly. And I have team of people over the other side of the world who write to me at all hours. They'll work Saturday nights. Why? Just to ensure that everybody on the platform is getting answered as quick as we can. Because, yeah, we could tell people we don't work weekends, but we want to help people. And if someone's standing in the middle of the gym and we can give them an answer there and then, it's just about that support, right?
Yeah, I would define you and your team as having an addiction to the endless pursuit of positive change.
But I like that.
That's how I would define you and your team.
Yeah. I think they're awesome. I think I've landed on my feet with such an amazing team. These are people who are, not just working here for wages. They are truly passionate about helping each individual. And yeah, I'm looking forward to obviously how you continue to take this and where it leads to. And obviously we want to be a part of it as much as we can. And I truly appreciate you taking the time out to have this
Oh, it's
conversation today.
my very great pleasure. As I said, the positivity to me has been, and I've mentioned this in the past, but in the not too distant future, I'll have my wife come on board because she's got her own sets of restrictions and impediments, and she'll be joining me in my business in the not too distant future, which is all part of sort of a bit of a lifestyle change. But as I said, a little bit probably later this year is when I'll reach back out to you and start to look at getting my team onto this, and it's literally part of my projections in terms of the business running, so much so that one of the team that's with me right now, not that she's aware that this will be the end outcome for her, but I'm conditioning her at the moment in terms of no, I want you to start work about 40 minutes later. Oh no, David, we've got to get this done. Well, no, I've got reasons for it. I actually want you to just not do anything, go and be with your kid or your husband or your whatever else, do whatever it is. And what I'm actually adapting her to, because she, like me, was so used to, oh no, we need to sit down, we need to do this, we need to hammer that out. And I'm adapting her to, I know that in the not too distant future, I'll be calling you and saying, right, I'm introducing you to Danielle. The business will cover all of this. Get her into the program. She's got her list of things because I know the benefit. You know, as I said, that 6 week mark for me in particular was the major highlight reel of, this is substantially more than what I could have ever hoped for. And what I hoped for was more than what I thought I was going to get. And this is leagues beyond it. And I know the power of this particular professional team. I'm glad that I took my time to find the right one and do my research on that because, like you, in terms of being lucky about landing on your feet with the right team, I've been lucky in terms of I've now found your team.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. And yeah, I look forward to your journey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.